Hello, brilliant entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 335, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/335. Today's episode is about building a business on a budget. So regardless of your reasons for wanting to have a lean business model and not having thousands and thousands to splash in cash, then you're going to find this episode super helpful. And I'm going to share with you my strategies for really effective and profitable lean business. So let's dive on in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Now, whether your desire to have a lean business or build your business on a budget comes from wanting to keep really high profit margins, whether it comes from necessity, you just don't have money to spend, or whether it comes out of fear that you have the money to spend, but you're not really sure if it's going to be worthwhile spending it yet. I don't care what your reason is. Lean business principles are going to be really effective for you. And it may surprise you to learn, as someone who sells high ticket programs, that I am actually a huge fan of the lean business model. In fact, lean business is one of the core strategies that underpins a lot of what it is that I teach online. Now, that being said, lean business does not mean constantly bootstrapping forever and making your business really hard for yourself. So I am someone who absolutely believes in super big profit margins, super high conversion rates, very lean business, not spending if you don't have to, but also recognizing where sometimes our desire to not spend money is actually costing us income. So when I talk about lean business, it's not through the lens of super tight, super cheap, like spend nothing business. It's through the lens of being very smart with your money. And I think that that's important to discern between the two. So I've got six really good tips for you if you are wanting to build your business on a budget. And if you've got any questions about these, of course, come on over and slide on into my DMs on Instagram or Facebook. I love having conversations with people about lean business, and it may surprise you to learn, I actually like talking to you. I love when you send me DMs. I love when you send an email through to me at support@tashcorbin.com. I'm keen for us to have conversations. So please do reach out if you've got any follow-up questions or you want to share any insights that came from listening to this episode. So number one, remember that when it comes to attracting and converting clients, i.e. making sales, the most costly part of your client attraction process is reach, both in time and in money. So if you are beginning or building a business on a budget, I would highly recommend that you focus on high conversion strategies. So the reason for that is because they are the ones that require the smallest audience. And if you've got a tight budget for building and growing your business, then reach is going to be really hard for you to achieve on that tight or limited budget. It is the most expensive part of the client attraction process. So just knowing that reach is the most expensive, then you will see directs you to models and strategies that are not going to rely on you needing to have thousands and thousands of people in your reach, thousands and thousands of followers on social media, tens of thousands of people on your mailing list. Those strategies that require that level of audience are going to be the most expensive. And so if you're starting a business or building a business the lean way, then look for ways that you can improve your conversion rate first, because that is going to reduce your expenses in your business significantly. So tip number one, reach is the most costly part of the client attraction process, so focus on strategies that don't require a lot of reach. Tip number two, very related to that, therefore, you want to be focusing on high conversion strategy. So if you're building a business on a budget, you want to ensure that you are converting as many of your audience into paying clients as possible. High conversion strategies are generally high connection strategies. So wherever you can choose a high connection option over a low connection option, then I would recommend you make that choice. For example, if you have the choice between creating an evergreen static freebie, that's a PDF that people do in their own time, versus creating a live high connection webinar, I would default to the webinar first. Now you can, of course, then turn that into something that's evergreen and can do the low connection stuff later, but you want to focus on high connection strategies first. So choose something high connection over low connection. A similar example to that is a high connection strategy is encouraging people to message and email you, just as I did for you. Versus a low connection strategy is one where whenever someone messages you or emails you, they get an autoresponder that says, I only check my emails once a week, so I'm not going to reply for a while. That's actually turning people off from connecting with you. Therefore, it's turning off potential clients from creating a relationship with you. So whilst I understand there's a lot of people out there teaching strategies that are very low connection and talking about businesses that are passive, businesses that are very leveraged and all of that kind of thing, if you have a very tight budget and you have the capacity to respond to some emails, knowing that the more people email you, the more clients you're going to have, then I would encourage you to actually look at high connection, high conversion models, especially in the early stages. Now, at this stage of my business, in multiple six figures, going for $1 million income this year, I still encourage people to DM and email me because I know that prioritizing that activity in my business is a high return on my investment of my time, much higher than on me creating a bunch of Instagram reels and creating a whole new TikTok channel and creating more and more content for people. You know, there are a lot of people out there who talk about passive income models, you know, low time intensive business models. But what they don't tell you is that even though you don't spend a lot of time connecting with real life humans, and there's a lot of, you know, free time in doing that, in order to create the results and the sales that they need, they're spending hours and hours and hours and hours a week creating content and being on multiple platforms in order to be able to avoid answering people's emails. Seems a little counterintuitive to me, but it is something for you to be aware of. So you get to choose what kind of strategy you use. Of course, if you don't like answering emails, you don't like talking to humans, then that's not necessarily going to be the right model for you. But especially in the early stages of business, I highly recommend that if you want to build your business on a budget, create connection with people because connection is far higher conversion. I am open to the day where it is no longer a good use of my time to answer emails or answer DMs. But at this stage of my business, it is still a very good use of my time. It increases my conversion rates over and over and over again. So, I see industry average conversion rates and, so even some of the people who run ginormous launches, they say, a 1% conversion rate is great or a 2% conversion rate is great. Some of my marketing strategies convert at 7%. I even have a 5-day challenge that I run that is still converting at over 11%. And I am connecting with people, responding to their questions, and I do it in a really boundaried way with my time. I'm not available to people 24/7, but I encourage people to message me. I encourage people to email me. I encourage people to ask me questions, and then I address those questions and address those messages and emails in a nice boundaried way. I certainly do not send them an autoresponder that says, basically, you're not important enough for me to listen to or write back to right now. You can wait till next week. I definitely don't treat people that way. I know that that's a taught strategy, but it's not one that I subscribe to. All right, number 3 strategy. If you're starting your business lean or you want to build your business in a lean way, you don't have a significant budget or you don't want to spend a lot of money on it, is to make use of partnerships and collaborations and reciprocal relationships with people. So I do recommend that you invest to be in the room in some way so that you have access to building your network and being around other people who are in the same space, whether that be buying an online course or being in a membership. There are some very low cost options available for you that get you access to a membership and access to a membership and a mentor and a network. And I think making the most of those is really, really effective. A lot of the people who are inside my programs do like podcast swaps with each other. I encourage them to interview each other on their social media channels. because you're each borrowing from each other's audiences. And that's really a really effective way to grow your audience, the most expensive part of your client attraction process, in a low cost, low time intensive way. So one of the things that I did when I first started my business 10 years ago, so it's not necessarily the right strategy for today, but I still think there are ways you can do it today that work really well, was that I invited a lot of people who I considered as industry leaders, who were like alongside my business. Maybe they served the same market but in a different way, and even just my peers from group programs or courses that I was in. I would invite them to be on an interview series that I ran on YouTube. Now, YouTube these days isn't as great for, reach and those sorts of things. And there are far more effective tools to do interviews live and in a way that reaches more people, of course. So you can do Instagram lives, or you can do Facebook lives, or you can do it on a podcast, right? It doesn't always have to be on YouTube. But back when I started my business, YouTube was really the go-to way of doing that. And so I invited a bunch of people to come and be interviewed on my YouTube channel. And then I shared that with my audience, and I would also share it in Facebook communities and with other people's audiences. So I really did a good job of being a good distributor of those interviews with other people. And that then resulted in those people sharing the interviews, which got me a lot more audience. But also sometimes they would say, well, this was a really cool conversation. I'd love to have you on my YouTube channel. We all did YouTube channels. Do you want to come and do an interview on my YouTube channel? And so I would jump onto theirs as well. Now, it didn't happen all the time, and certainly with some of the bigger names in the industry, that didn't happen, but they did still share the interview with their audience. They would link back to it on their website, on their as seen in, and I would give them the little image to use, so they could say as seen on Tash Corbin YouTube channel. It had my logo, and that was a clickable link back to the interview. So those sorts of reciprocal relationships and giving other people a platform actually grew my audience. So looking for a strategy that works for you in a way that you want to do it. You might be not interested in video, you just want to do audio only. Maybe you have an audience that love written content, and so you can invite your peers to submit articles to your website, and you could create like a bunch of articles on your website as well. There's lots of ways to create that reciprocity, and I started that reciprocity by being very giving and very helpful to those people who I invited onto my interview series. So instead of just waiting to be chosen or pitching myself and saying, hey, I should be on your YouTube channel when I was an unproven in the market, instead I would say, hey, would you be interested in coming onto my YouTube channel for an interview? I will be distributing it to my audience, which is under 1,000 people on my mailing list, but I also distribute it in this group, which is 20,000 people, this group, which is 10,000 people, and this group, which is 5,000 people. So I was able to get that content in front of large scale audiences, not necessarily my own, but I was willing to do that work. Now, I'm giving you the opportunity to do that as well. You would be able to do that on Freebie Day in the Heart Center community. So let's say that you did an interview series on your Facebook page and you interviewed people on your Facebook page. You could let them know you're sharing that into the Heart Center community on Freebie Day or Market Day, and that's a community of 35,000 people. So it's not your audience, but you have access to that audience and can share your content with that audience. Now, think about as well, if you're sharing an interview like that into the Heart Centered community and you're interviewing an industry leader, think of the shared authority that you now have with the audience in the Heart Center community. Oh, they got to interview that person? Wow. So it actually does also get people to stop and listen if the person you're interviewing is familiar to them. And so this is a really powerful way to start creating that growth of audience and really building your business without having to spend a cent. Yes, you might need to do a bit of work or get someone in your team to do that work of distributing it and making sure that you tag them appropriately and all of that kind of stuff. But if you're working with a limited budget, it's a really quick way to grow your audience and then create that opportunity to build some connection and get some clients for yourself out of that audience as well. So that is tip number 3, partnerships and reciprocity. Now, tip number 4 is to be 100% clear on your strategy. Because one of the biggest ways that you will blow your budget when you're building a business is shiny objects and getting caught in someone's fear-based marketing around you must do this, you must do this, you must do that. And so then you get convinced that you need to buy tools or courses or tip sheets or swipe files to do those exact things. Now, it is in that marketer's best interest to convince you that you need to do that strategy because they're about to sell you something that teaches that strategy. So when you are clear on what your strategy is, you can be far stronger and far more resistant to that fear-based marketing that's going to try and convince you of otherwise. You know, I had someone who came to the planning call at the start of this year and said, look, I've been building an audience on Facebook. I've been making some really good sales and I've got lots of great relationships there, but I'm really starting to think I need to move everything over to Instagram and I'm going to do this course on how to grow my following on Instagram and do Instagram Reels. And I said, well, what gave you the idea that Instagram is going to be better than Facebook? And they said, I did this free training with this person and I'm thinking about doing their program because they've shown blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's fear-based marketing, right? That's telling you the thing that you've done is completely invalid. When you just told me the audience that you built on Facebook is engaged, you're getting sales, it's starting to make momentum. You're starting to get to that tipping point where it's going to create a lot of growth and momentum on its own, and you're going to abandon that audience to go and create Reels on Instagram because some random person has a course to sell you on how to do Reels on Instagram. Now, all due respect to that person, they're doing a very good job of convincing you, but is that actually in your best interest? Are they looking out for your best interests? And I would argue, even if you keep posting to Facebook as you currently have been, if you are doing a course on Instagram Reels, you are still dedicating time to something else. That is an opportunity cost. So I would rather see you pick a channel, pick a strategy and nail it and put all your time and energy into nailing that one and see it get to that tipping point and create momentum much sooner than spread yourself thin across multiple channels and multiple strategies. Now, when I say be 100% clear on your strategy, I don't just mean your social media channel. I mean your client attraction process, the strategy that you're using to reach and convert people into paying clients. The client attraction process is made up of 5 stages. It is not just show up on socials and then make sales. Yeah. So when it comes to being really clear on your strategy, what is the strategy you're using to reach cold audience? What is the strategy you're using to nurture a relationship with that audience and warm them up? What is the strategy that you're using to generate leads from that warm audience and have them lean in and say, oh, I'm interested in working with you? And then what is your strategy to convert them into paying clients? Stage 5 of the client attraction process, and the last stage, is to deliver. And this is often an underrated but very important way that we attract more clients without having to spend any more money. So you've got word of mouth benefits, because if you deliver for your existing clients, they're going to tell people about working with you and recommend you. But there are other benefits as well. It increases your confidence in your products and services. It allows you a lot of insight into how to create even more resonant messaging because you can speak to tangible results that your clients are achieving, as well as that energetic sense of confidence that you are delivering on what you promise and you're not letting people down. So don't forget that deliver stage of your client attraction process. When I say be 100% confident in your strategy, that's what I'm talking about, that client attraction process. So you know what you're doing in those 5 stages: reach, nurture, lead gen, conversion, and delivery. That means when you see someone online who's saying, if you're not doing XYZ strategy, you're leaving money on the table, instead of it creating this fear in you and you thinking, oh gosh, there's another thing I need to learn, you can instead confidently know, this is my strategy, this is what I'm focused on, and I'm going to commit my time and energy and attention on ensuring I really nail this strategy first, and scale it up rather than spreading myself thin and jumping into courses and the belief that I need to be doing thousands and thousands of other things because some random guru has said so. This saves you money and helps you build your business on a budget, not just because you stop buying unnecessary courses, templates, cheat sheets, swipe files, but also because you don't get convinced you need to buy that extra tool to manage those 6 platforms you're now managing. You don't feel like you need to hire people to manage all of this excessive workload that's not actually contributing to the overall bottom line of your business. So, the Pareto principle is 20% of your effort and energy gets you 80% of your results. So focus down on that core strategy and really nailing that and then scaling it up first, and you will see higher profitability. You will be able to keep your business to budget, and you will see much faster growth as well. Now, tip number 5 is to reinvest strategically. So I don't prescribe or subscribe to the belief that you need to go into debt to build a business, that you need to put it on the house to build a business, that you need to invest tens of thousands of dollars up front to build a business. If I had had money to start my business, which I didn't, I would have wasted it all. The things that I was disappointed that I couldn't buy, looking back, would have been ridiculously convoluted and in no way, shape or form would have helped me grow my business. In fact, I think if I'd had more money to start my business, I would have been slower to get to the results that I got to. So I don't subscribe to that belief that the more you spend, the more you'll be able to make and the faster you'll be able to grow your business at all. And in fact, I know for myself personally, it's different for different personality types, but I know for myself personally, if I'd had $30,000 to start my business, I would have wasted $30,000. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't have that money. And also I'm kind of glad that I didn't have the money to buy the things that I wanted to buy, because they would have sent me down a trajectory of creating products and services and creating marketing strategies that actually weren't as effective as the ones that I did that were free. So reinvest, but do it strategically. Be mindful of where you're going to be putting your money and see it as reinvesting profits, right? So if you have, $0 budget to start your business, then maybe you say 20% of the money that comes in goes into hiring my first team member, or 20% of the money that comes in goes into hiring a mentor or buying a program, because that's the strategy I know that I want to implement, and that's the only purchase that I'm going to make. So you're very clear on exactly the thing that you're going to buy, but you're very strategic about that reinvestment. Now, as I said at the start of this, tip number 1, reach is the most costly part of your business. And so if you are in the early stages of business, or you're still at the stage where your conversion is not high, do not invest in reach to solve a conversion problem. This is where reinvesting strategically is so powerful, because in a lot of cases, you would be better off investing in someone to help you with your messaging, with conversion, with sales strategies, because that's going to be much more likely to increase your income straight away without you having to grow your audience, versus reinvesting that money in Facebook ads or learning how to get TikTok videos to go viral or Instagram reels to go viral, because reach does not equal sales. And particularly if you're on a budget, I would much rather see you invest in things that improve conversion, improve lead generation, and improve the extent to which you nurture your relationship with your existing audience, than to send money on the most costly part of your business client attraction process, reach. Yes, there are times where it's time to invest in reach and scale it up, but generally that's when you're highly profitable and you're not operating on a limited budget anymore. If you are still operating on a limited budget, chances are you will not solve your conversion issues with reach solutions. So be very strategic about the way that you reinvest any income that comes into your business. And then tip number 6 is learn how to calculate the real cost of buying something. So we know from psychological studies that when someone clicks to buy a course that's going to help them be more organized, they actually get the same endorphin and adrenaline hit as if they had achieved the goal, right? If I'm going to buy a course on being more productive and more efficient, then just buying the course in itself creates that sense of, oh my gosh, I'm more productive and efficient. Now, in reality, you're not more productive and efficient. You've bought something that may help you to be more productive and efficient, but there's also an investment of your time required to net that return. So a good example of this is for me, when I first started my business, I purchased a course on how to build my own website because I thought it will be cheaper if I learn how to build my own website, and then I'll be able to do all the updates and I'll be able to do all the posting and all those sorts of things. And so I bought a course on how to create my own website. I wasted over 100 hours learning how to build my own website, only to still not be able to build my own website. Now, granted, at the time, self-built website tools were not as great as they are today, but I ended up hiring someone to build me a very basic website for cheaper than the price I paid for the course, right? So I was buying a course to learn how to DIY thinking that would be cheaper. And in the end, it was actually cheaper to hire someone else to do it for me. Plus, it saved me hours and hours of heartache. So sometimes we think that we're saving money by learning how to do something ourselves when we would actually save more money. And if we incorporated the cost of our time in there, we would save far more money if we just hired someone else to do it. So think about long term, what sorts of things do you really need to know how to do in your business? Do you need to know how to build a website in the back end? Or do you just need to know how to add a new blog post to it and do edits where required? There's a big difference between how you would invest comparing those two things. The other way that I want to talk about learning how to measure the real cost is where you use a free workaround, but it actually ends up taking far longer and it creates frustration. Time and frustration are two of the biggest resistance points in business. Things taking much longer than expected or things taking a lot of time creates this sense of frustration. Things are going slow. You start to wonder whether you're cut out for this. You get bored. You didn't start a business to do the same thing over and over again. You likely have an entrepreneurial brain. You're craving creativity. You're creating variety. And then you have to sit and do the same thing over and over again 400 times in order to get something working. Not the best use of your time. And there's an opportunity cost with that. So sometimes, even though it costs more money to lay out, perhaps it'll cost you $40 to hire someone to do it for you. That $40 saving you the time that it takes you, but also the mindset wobbles that then triggers when you're not really good at something the first time, and also the frustration of having to do tasks that aren't in your wheelhouse is worth spending the money to get someone else to do it for you. And something that I shared in last week's podcast episode, which was about side hustles, is to hire sooner rather than later. And even if you're building a business on a budget, I still recommend hiring sooner rather than later. You can hire someone for 5 hours a week off Upwork, and they will have such a significant impact on how you feel about your business, the momentum you make in your business, the results you get in your business, simply because you have someone to do those things that aren't necessarily in your wheelhouse, that frustrate you, that take your time. Yeah, sure, you could get it done. I'm sure you're a very diligent person. I'm sure you're a very fast learner, but is that actually a smart business decision as the CEO of your business? Sometimes it's better to spend that little bit of money and save yourself the frustration, the time, and the heartache. The same thing goes for sometimes those free tools versus a very low cost tool. So I remember in the early stages of my business, there was a free tool that you could use to run webinars, but it took me 10 hours to set it up. You had to do all of these workarounds. You had to import people's names into your mailing list and then export them later because you had to jump around hoops to make sure that you were never charged. And to be honest with you, I wish I'd never done that. I wish that I had instead just spent the money earlier for the tools that I needed to get the job done. Knowing that, it also would have meant I would feel more obligated. I'm an obliger in the 4 tendencies to actually use the tool that I was paying for. If I had started using a paid mail service, for example, sooner, I would have sent far more newsletters and emails. If I had used a paid webinar service far sooner, I would have created far more webinars. If I had used a paid booking service to get people booked into my calendar, I would have booked far more people into my calendar. So learn how to calculate the real cost and pay attention to where you're trying to save money, but actually you're reducing your income. And so the money you're saving is actually negated. Another example of that is PayPal fees and Stripe fees and bank fees and processing fees. They are a normal part of doing business. As someone who uses PayPal to make most of my purchases, when I see someone doesn't offer PayPal as an option, and then I often will send an email because I can't find my credit card. I don't know where my purse is right now, right? Like, I don't know how to pay you, but I do know how to log into my PayPal. So it's easier for me to send an email and ask, hey, could I pay you via PayPal, rather than like try and find where my credit card is. And I will often do that. Especially recently I've had some injuries. And so getting up and actually going and finding my wallet or bugging Davey to do it is just not on my agenda. And when I get the reply that they say, no, I don't use PayPal because the fees are too high, I think, well, you've saved yourself a $4.50 fee, but you've cost yourself a $400 sale right now. Your choice, right? So I don't know if the math is right on that. I think it's like a $12 fee for a $400 sale, but still, would you rather have $400 and pay a $12 fee or not have the sale at all? Because when it comes to checking out on PayPal, that's generally what you get from me as a buyer. And I know that I'm not alone in that. So yes, I understand the desire to want to keep those expenses low and, find ways to do things as cost effectively as possible. But sometimes your desire to save money on those things is actually costing you income that would have more than covered that expense. So be mindful and learn how to calculate that real cost. All right, this is so exciting. I am really excited to help you build your business on a budget. It's kind of my specialty. It's kind of my thing. And if you found this really helpful, I also have an upcoming class on how to build your business on a budget as well. So in that class, I'm going to go into the details of what is a good marketing strategy and client attraction process if you've got a limited budget. Some more detail on what is a high connection, high conversion strategy that will help you to get the income in really quickly so that you don't have to go into debt to grow your business. So if you want to grow your business on a budget, whether you've been in business for 3 seconds or 3 years, but you're still working to a restricted budget, then make sure you come to the show notes of today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/335, and we'll have the link for you to go and register there. And even if you're there after we've done the live class, we'll have the link to the replay for you there as well. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.